Items 11, energy development committees, finance commission will notice innovation developments, development the major developments forum, as mentions of the approach new policy matters related to government ahead of a period of major capital budget and following the key respectively.
Thank you, Chair. The report provides an update on where we are with various renewable energy projects across the Western Isles and in and around Lewis in particular. The report also provides an update on the major projects forum, which Councillor Murray asked at the last series of meetings. So the early part of the report, 5.2 onwards, overviews where we are with the HVDC ring, the three main terrestrial projects, and gives an overview of the Scotland offshore wind projects and process here under. So 5.7 overviews for we think the outline programme looks like at this point, although that is obviously subject to how they progress with their various surveys and researches. 5.11 overviews the energy hub, and we touch on the Island Centre and other considerations relating to renewables development. 6.1 talks about the major developments forum. That forum has been meeting since August last year. It is a conduit for officials to work with the developers to understand their forward programme towards implementation and to ensure that there is a good collaborative process in place to ensure these developments are implemented as smoothly as possible in due course. 6.2 outlines the action plan that we put together with the forum. So that overviews, engagement around the Comhairle stations, communications, skills, peat management, supply chain issues and freight issues, etc. So these are all some of the critical issues that we need good collaboration with the developer community going forward. One of the other issues we're working with them in particular at the moment is around accommodation and accommodation strategy. We've developed an accommodation strategy that we've shared with the developer community. The key objective of that strategy being that they leave a housing legacy. That the approach outlined there is based on 6.6 is based on them being able to identify and us with them being able to identify opportunities to repurpose and regenerate vacant, disabled or surplus assets to ensure any new buildings constructed in a manner that will support future regeneration objectives and to ensure any new builds can be transferred to a local agency or community body at the end of their use for accommodations. And of course, we want them to work with the local construction sector to try and maximise the development there. 7.1 talks about capacity and some of the discussion earlier. We spoke about the capacity in the planning service. As members know, I'm really concerned about the level of capacity we have in the service and the need to boost that capacity over the next number of years. We've tried to outline in the report from 7.1 forward the major bits of determination or consultation that the service is going to have to engage in, and that is a significant amount of work. It should be noted that work will be going on as we're trying to implement and develop other projects, such as all the projects within the Islands Growth Deal and the potential projects that will emerge from the Levelling Up Partnership, as well as the normal churn of business that goes on from year to year in the planning service, which is quite significant. So we have a service that is under considerable strain at the moment, and that strain is liable to be overwhelming unless we think carefully over the next number of months about how we generate more capacity into the service. There are discussions going on with the Chief Planners, and I'll be meeting the Chief Planners again in a couple of weeks just to try and move the case for additional capacity forward. And as the Chair has mentioned earlier, these points have been made directly to the Planning Minister fairly recently. So with the major developments forum, we've got a huge official link in with the developer community. I think we are going to have to give consideration to how we build some political oversight within the Comhairle, particularly as these projects go into implementation. Now, there's a wee bit of time towards implementation yet, but the planning for that implementation is ongoing, and the converter station, for example, is liable to move quite quickly over the next period. So there are some suggestions there at 8.1 onwards about an internal political oversight board. The bullet points at 8.6 outline what I think that oversight board should be doing, providing strong and effective strategic leadership and direction, conduit to national government, national agencies around strategic issues, monitoring the implementations of development and making sure that mitigations go in place, ensuring that we are maximising benefits, being able to react to external opportunities and challenges as they arrive. I've no doubt there will be challenges within these build-out programs. There will be significant build-out programmes, and we've got to understand the potential for wider geographic and sectoral impacts that may happen. So we've got to guard against, for example, sectors of the economy. If jobs start leaking out of traditional sectors into renewables, I think we've got to have sectoral strategies in place to defend and guard against that. And I think this board will be useful in regard to that. At 8.8, I suggest perhaps how that board should be, the potential membership of. That is obviously entirely up to elected members to decide if that is correct or not, and appoint to that board as they see appropriate. In conclusion, from 2026 onwards, I think we are going to see an unprecedented level of construction activity that will represent possibly certainly the largest ever private sector investment in related properties, and understanding that the build programme at the moment, the total cost of that is in the region of £7 billion. So that is a significant build programme with significant construction and operational phase benefits, but it will also come with challenges that I think the Comhairle is going to have to think hard around these challenges and have links with the developer community through the major developments forum and oversight of the process through this internal board that I'm suggesting through this report chair. So happy to leave with that, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Colin, for that comprehensive update of the current situation. Any questions from members? Mr. McKenzie,
Speak closer. Can I put forward a couple of suggestions for the board?
But we come to that.
You come to that. Okay.
Councillor Murray, that's sorry.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm looking at 6.2 and the work streams. Understand the necessity and the prioritisation of all of these, but I wonder if we spoke about number 7. I wonder if perhaps the number 11 could include something there to do with childcare, because I mean an influx of workers and young families is something that's a real barrier, as identified often by young people. I think mentioned actually housing, so becoming a blatant, and I just wondered if that's something that could be considered alongside one of these other work streams.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Stephen?
Yes, happy to take that into consideration, Chair, and added to it, it is one of the challenges we've got across the Outer Hebrides at the moment. Never mind with there's an influx of workers around childcare. And I know one of the things in the repopulation zone work, they are piloting some work around childcare, and maybe Kathleen will be able to say a few words about that later.
Thank you. Councillor McCormick, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair, if I may. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Deputy Chief Executive on a first-class report. I don't think he's missed much in this report at all, and it clarifies for us all the challenges that we face in the immediate future and for the next few years. It's a point which I'm very pleased that at last we have reached. When I joined the council in 2003, the talk was of the interconnector, which was going to travel down the Minch and tie in to South Scotland, somewhere in Ayrshire. Regrettably, that nothing like that happened, but here we are now, where we are, and it's a huge, but there's huge potential for us, but there is also huge risk, and that point is certainly made by Eilean in his report. We've never had a combination of major reports like this ever before. So coming with major projects and major challenges, it requires very careful management. And I'm hoping that all of the major developers have learned from SSEN's not very clever start, I would say, so that in future we will have more considered positions brought to us as a council. I'm deeply concerned about our capacity for the future, not just in the planning department, which is definitely going to be under pressure, but also in technical services and support services, just about everywhere. And I feel that it's kind of scenario where the national government should be stepping in and saying, here is some support for you to take this major development forward. And it's going to last for a number of years. So we're looking for governmental support over a number of years. And I sincerely hope that comes. I note in 629, you referred, Eilean, to a suite of new benefits. And I do hope that we can come to an agreement on what that might mean. And I'm hoping that maybe the developers will come together with us and the young people who are working on fuel poverty issues to try and address the matter of fuel poverty. If we could address the matter of fuel poverty in these islands, I think it would remove a lot of the concerns that people have about the future developments. I appreciate that people will have concerns, and we must try and alleviate the situation for them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Hopefully the oversight board that was being proposed will address all of what you've mentioned there. But consumer benefit has always been at the heart of our plans for going forward in terms of renewables. These benefits would be direct to helping consumers and alleviating fuel poverty. Do you want to give anything to add to Mr. McCormick? Comments coming?
No, nothing to add to that, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other? Councillor Gordon Murray.
Thank you, Chair. If just looking at part 6.2 of the report and section 5, development of a strategic peat management strategy, I think there might be an opportunity for developers to lease peatland from community landowners to offset their carbon that's released into the atmosphere by the excavation of these for the turbines or whatever. And this could communities could really benefit from this if the developers in offsetting their carbon footprint by leasing peatland from communities. Could this be explored in terms of a peat management strategy?
Yes, Chair, I think it can. One of the developers is leading on a scope of works for the rest of the developer community to look at that. And one of the things that we've asked to look at in there is how community estates and the wider community can benefit from peatland mitigation and peatland development efforts. So we await to see that scope of works, and we will take that forward from there. But I think there is opportunity in what Mr. Murray is saying.
Thank you. Councillor McInnes and then Councillor Steele, and I think Mr. Morrison is in the chamber.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Sorry, I welcome this report, and it's clear that in front of us here is a unique opportunity of transformation, within the whole island community, and as we alluded to earlier on in the meeting, that Hughes and Barra are also engaged. So this is more concentrated on the newest part of renewables, and I think, as Councillor McCormick alluded to, SSEN, certainly community engagement will be key for all the developers in moving forward. We've already seen that on the west side of this, with the reaction that the N4 is getting, we see, was onshore. And we hope that the developers realise they're moving into a community that they have to take the community with them. And the key is the community benefit and what benefits the community going to get out of this. And that community benefit can be used to develop other things within the Western Islands as we move forward. And clearly, the Comhairle has been leading and has been influencing the decision. And one can't forget that if it wasn't for Comhairle here, that interconnector wouldn't be here coming in 2030. They've been involved over a 20-year period, I would say, and it shows the influence that the Comhairle has taken and led the way and saw the vision that many people were saying were impossible. And this is the unique opportunity that Lewis in particular offers in, I would say, similar to the oil industry and the boom that is ahead, because we've never experienced anything like it as we're moving forward. So I welcome the paper, and I think taking all developers and all other agencies together and the Scottish Government, and they must put their hands in their pocket and make sure that we're not left wanting for money and taking forward what we need just as a whole in going forward.
Thank you, Mr. McInnes. Councillor Steele.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just to follow on from Councillor McInnes there, there's going to be £7 billion worth of investment in the Western Isles. I think that tells a lot about what we're actually contributing back to Scotland as a whole. So I don't think we're going asking for support to take these things forward. This needs to be provided. We need this support to be able to take these things forward. It's not just now that it's Scotland's interest. So I think it's it's that kind of mentality. We're not saying, oh, please, we're doing some more money to do this. This needs to happen, and it's the Highland Islands providing so much for Scotland. It needs to be recognised at national level. Just one point I was going to mention was in terms of the sectoral strategies. I think that's really key, because there are a lot of things happening in Ireland. It's a danger, that or a risk certainly, that the limited workforce we have could be thrown into these sectors. Potentially they will be, but I think we've just got to be very careful. And obviously, the representing city yourselves can make for migration north where there's more work. So we just need to be very careful about what we're doing. And I think having this oversight will help us make somebody.
Thank you. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. My question is really, it's a point here in 8.8 in the oversight board. I would like consideration to be given to a member from the Lochs ward to be included in that membership board. And my justification for that is with Eurowind and now with RWE coming around the table at the last minute, every village in the Lochs area is going to be impacted in one way or another. So I'd really like consideration to be given for a member from the Lochs ward to sit on that oversight board if it was to be established. And again, I welcome this report from the Deputy Chief Executive. It shows us the volume of, well, it's huge what's the potential that's going to happen in the Western Isles and with all this development. We need to move now, and this just shows us the gravitas of what is in front of us. It is massive job potential, and I just hope that Comhairle, we're going to be up from planning right through to a roads network to everything. We're working with every team possible. But I really welcome the report. It's a fantastic transformational change for the Western Isles. But consideration to be pleased to be given to the member from the Lochs ward for the oversight board. Thank you.
I think there be any objections to that, Mr. Morrison? Anything else? So Donald, Vice Chair.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in. I nearly fell out of my chair just now when Comhairle mentioned a figure of 7 billion. I actually thought it was about 1.4 to 2 billion, sorry. But the scale of the projects alluded to by the leader as well. The pressure on this corner going forward to deliver a lasting legacy for the islands has been alluded to by Councillor McCormack with assist with fuel poverty. If we don't deliver a lasting legacy and help the islands here, and the projects are in jeopardy unless there is meaningful benefit for the islanders and the communities affected. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that a Sustainable Development Committee, a core in its entirety, make sure that whatever happens, everybody in the Western Isles benefits from this 7 billion influx of money. Otherwise, it'll be a failure on our part. And the weight of responsibility weighs heavily upon all of us to make sure that this happens. But going back to the development board or the oversight development board, one of the things that's possibly going to come up, and I just mentioned this to Comhairle a minute ago, and it will come up with the development board, the oversight development board. There's going to be an awful lot of freight, particularly coming across to support the building of this infrastructure. And that freight could impact upon movement backwards and forwards on the dedicated passenger ferries that we have, passenger and freight ferries that we have to go backwards and forwards from Stornoway. We'll need to have a discussion with Caledonian Bahrain, Scottish Government, the Port Authority on how we can accommodate this freight without any major disruption to already stretched services every summer across the Winches. So I think part of the duty of the Oversight Board will be to engage in discussions to ensure that the massive amount of freight that's required for this infrastructure will not impact negatively on everything else that happens.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just to note, I think it is in the report, one of the work streams that's being kicked off by the Major Development Board is around freight. Without a doubt, there will be a significant impact on freight, but that hopefully will be developers bringing in their own tonnage, but they will use higher vessels to bring in the majority of their components, etc. But there will still be an impact on the ferry service. So I think it is one of the discussions we need to be having with Transport Scotland and government, how to ensure that that basic ferry capacity is in there. And I think there is a similar discussion with Loganair, because there will be worker transitions on and off the island for a certain period. Most of the transitions we'll be looking at will probably be every 2 weeks. So when we think of freight, we usually think of the ferry service. But I think in this discussion, we've also got to think about Loganair and the air service. But that is a discussion that we're now beginning to move forward on within the Major Development.
Thank you. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, and to add to that and respond to Councillor MacDonald. Tomorrow's Transportation and Infrastructure Committee will consider our response to the island's connectivity plan, and one point is specifically mentioned about the anticipated increase, significant increase, potentially in freight traffic, and the need to accommodate that. So members will have the opportunity to speak about that tomorrow as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chief Executive. So if you have agreements to establish an oversight board, the potential membership may include either deputy chair and vice chair of state development, and vice chair of transportation, a member of the Stornoway board, and a member of the West Side board, and as Mr. Monson has indicated, side a member from the Lochs board, and office of representation to decided by the chief executive. That we can call for nominations for one member to be appointed from the Stornoway board, and a member to be appointed from the West Side board, one member to be appointed from the Lochs board. So I was just going to nominate the convener for the West Side board. Is an agreement?
Yes, thanks, Chair.
Have a seconder?
Yes, a second.
Mr. Mackenzie?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say one or two things before. That's obviously a work in the report. It's a substantial report. and talked about the figure of 7 billion, but not shouldn't be surprised actually. It would probably be more, a lot more as time goes on. The UK is responsible for energy, but as has been said, Scotland will benefit from this, from what's produced in the Western Isles, but also the UK will. The UK will. I think Mr. McCormick mentioned earlier on. It's ludicrous that people in London have been less for the electricity than we are in the Western Isles, and the potential of supplying both Scotland and the UK. I think when you're talking about 7 billion, that's looking ahead to the future. I think we should be, maybe not in this report, but we should be talking about at least investigating tunnels, and maybe that's coming up later on. I don't know if it's in that report you refer to. I would, since Gordon Murray put this, asked for this report, I would say looking forward for the Stornoway one. And leave it at that. Thank you.
Is there a second for that nomination? I'll second it. So Macaulay. Any other nominations for the Stornoway Board representation?
Well, I propose Angus McCall.
Second word.
Yes. Okay. So we'll deal with this first, and we need to go to a vote. So Mr. Mackenzie, supported Mr. Macaulay, has nominated Gordon Murray to represent Stornoway on the board, and Mr. McInnes, we can all moved Mr. McCormick's name. Are there any other nominations for the Stornoway representation?
I think the west side's a big area to do more than one.
Well, let's deal with this first, please. So are we going to take a roll call vote for the committee? So we're first of all, those who are supporting Mr. McCormick's nomination. Do you want to take us through the?
Yeah, I would do. So I'll just call out everyone's name. That would be the easiest thing to do, I think. So first of all, so for Mr. McCormick, I'll just go in order. So John Crichton.
Mr. McCormick.
Norman MacDonald.
Mr. McCormick.
Ian Archibald.
Mr. McCormick.
Paul Steele.
Mr. McCormick.
Mustafa Hussain. Mustafa.
Mr. McCormick.
Euston Robertson. Don't Clifton.
You're on mute. They can hear you. They can hear you.
Use the name, please.
Houston, they can hear you. Mr. McCormick.
Okay. Robert Mackenzie.
Mr. McCormack.
Liz Morrison.
Cormac.
Norman Misty MacDonald.
Mr. McCormick.
Is John Norman McLeod online? I think so.
John Moore just left the meeting, unfortunately.
Okay. Convener.
Gordon Murray.
Donald McSween.
Angus McCormack.
Is Johnny online? Ian Macaulay.
Mr. Murray.
Duncan McInnes.
Mr. McCormick.
Okay. Mr. Mackenzie.
Councillor Murray.
Here you go now.
So,
Sorry.
Canning.
Yeah, okay. And then Francis Murray.
I wanted a vote.
You're not a member of the committee.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yes, okay. So, so for Councillor Gordon Murray, there are 4 votes.
Councillor Gordon Murray's not voted.
Sorry, I assumed you would vote for yourself. Sorry about that. Okay, councillor Gordon Murray.
Can I vote for myself? Myself.
And councillor Ansel Cormac.
I guess you'll have to turn your mic on.
No, they can.
He probably doesn't understand.
So that's 13 for councillor McCormack and 5 for councillor Gordon Murray. Okay.
Thank you, Sean. Been informed, I should have known that Mr. McDonald nominated, was seconded Mr. McCormack's nomination, and he's not a member of the committee.
That's actually it falls.
False, Mr. McDonald.
So Mr. McCormack has been elected to sit on the board representing Stornoway. Now call for nominations for the member for the west side, well, particularly the west side, for the Lochs board. I have a nomination for a member from the Lochs board to sit on the oversight board.
Could I nominate Councillor Robert Mackenzie?
You
set that one up well.
Mr. Mackenzie is seconding Mr. Mackenzie.
And Chair, can I second Mr. Mackenzie's nomination, please?
Look, you can't, it's already been done.
Chair, we don't know what's gone on in your room.
We don't know what's going on in our room either.
He's just been elected to the board. So that concludes the recruitment to the oversight board. Agreed. West side. No. Yeah. So recommendations, you know, substantial of reports, recommendations. Thank you. So now we're moving on to the housing section of the agenda. Was before housing proposal. Just to remind members that there's a housing seminar on the 1st of May. It's next Wednesday. So item 12 is the local housing strategy orientation survey report is for noting reports by usual findings of the survey at 1 from the 6th of December 2023 to the 17th of January 2024. And Angela Smith will speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry.
Okay, community engagement plays a big part in shaping the local housing strategy. So once the housing need and demand assessment was approved by Scottish Government last year, the local housing strategy steering group sought to prepare an early engagement survey to get some feedback from the public. So the survey ran from the 6th of December 2023 to the 17th of January 2024 via the SurveyMonkey platform. It was 5 weeks later than intended owing to the cyber attack, but there were 232 responses, which is approximately 1% of the population. It's a fairly low response rate, but it was fairly representative of every island area. The report in the appendix is there for your reference, but I'll just give some headlines just now. 84% of respondents were happy with the current vision. Population decline, fuel poverty and supply scored fairly high in the various housing challenges outlined. Approximately half of the respondents stated that they knew how their homes would be affected by the forthcoming housing standard for energy efficiency, and only 23% said they'd be able to fund any works required. In terms of what people wanted to see their homes like and the communities like in the next 20 years or so, respondents stated that their homes should be energy efficient, well insulated, affordable, sustainable. They would like outside space to support food production, good digital connectivity. There should be hubs and options for home working. There should be thriving communities with sufficient homes for all that are appropriate for place. Mixed tenure, low running costs, fit for purpose, including size and quality, robustly constructed and retrofitted where required. That's all the detail I'll give you at the moment, but I will say that I've prepared a challenge sheet because we were able to collect data on a postcode basis. I've prepared a challenge sheet for each area, and these will form a focus for discussions when we go out to consult, in-person consultations throughout the islands. And that will be commencing on the 6th of May, on Monday the 6th of May in Uist. We'll be in Barra and Battersea the following day, back up in Uist on Wednesday, and Lewis and Harris will follow in due course. So we'd welcome attendance of councillors at any meetings, and we will give you the dates of these and the times of these in due course. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at the moment.
Thank you, Angela. Any questions from members? Councillor McCauley?
Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure this is a time on the platform to comment on the new housing that's going on down at the airport. I understand that there was expression of interest asked for some is going to be social housing and some is going to be rent to buy. I was disappointed at the move away from the shared equity that has been going on in the past up in hotels and Park End, opposite Park End. And there seems to be a lean towards this the rent to buy, where somebody is renting a property for 5 years and then has the option to buy it at the end. But the rental income that we've been asked for is nearly £800 a month. And the properties are vastly more expensive, and it is certainly not affordable housing in my eyes. Whereas the shared equity, which was previously going on with it, especially with one of the 2-bedroom houses, where they got first-time buyers were getting to buy between 60 and 80% of the property. It was a much more affordable housing, and it was a very popular one. And I just think it's a shame that we are moving away from that, and I think we should go back to that system. And I wondered, well, why a shift? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. You should point to making, but you could address that in the next item.
Surely.
We want to consider.
Come and say it again.
I know you would. No, I want to. Apologies. So we just want to concentrate on the engagement survey item at the moment. And I think that's a nice one thing. Your mic's not on, but only through.
Switch it off. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the report. It was very interesting, and I was looking at the one in particular in terms of space for food production, and I wondered what the officer's comments would be if there was a possibility or potential of a synergy between house building and crofts and crofting, whether they could be brought together, because obviously there's quite a lot of crofts that aren't being used. Is there a possibility of some sort of working together to get houses built on crofts in this way? Thanks.
Well, before I bring Angela back in, the best way of getting the houses onto crofts is to have a proper building to allow young people to build on the crofts. That's what we can pay for us council for many years ago. But I'll let Angela come in to see if she wants to get observations on that in terms of the survey.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't pick up that very clearly.
Mr.
From our perspective, the croft housing is the best approach, and croft housing grants the best approach for crofts. I'm really sorry, I just didn't pick up what was said.
Did you pick up what Mr. Murray said? His question. In the chamber.
I think, yes, Chair, it's quite muffled. The audio, so we're not picking up everything that's been said. But I think in retrospect, maybe this is maybe a discussion that could be had at the primary industries MOUG and the housing MOUG possibly, and explore it there if.
Well, we're having a housing seminar next Wednesday as well too, so we can have a discussion about it then too.
It's excellent. Thanks. That answers my question. So.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions on the housing survey? Mr. McKenzie.
Just one question, for instance, on question 2, says from the list below, pick 5 housing challenges that affect the area you live in. And this one 1 to 5, but you know that obviously weren't restricted to 1 to 5. But it's just I noticed that HS1, for instance, there are 20 different categories, and in HS2 there's 5. You know, and there's 6, 7, 8, and 6, and 12, and 8, and 18 or something over the different HSs. So I just wonder, you know, why that would be. I mean, is there any rational reason why, you know, 20 categories from HS1 and 5 and HS2, maybe the Herocks are quite happy with the way things are.
Angela, are you able to, did you hear that?
Again, I'm sorry, I didn't hear much of that at all. The sound is really muffled here.
Listen.
Mrs. McKenzie will speak to, well, raised at the housing seminar next. Okay, any other questions, Lieutenant? Councillor Robertson.
It's Mustafa here, just using Councillor Robertson's phone. So, yeah, just to Angela as well, regarding when you look, sorry, can you hear us?
Yes, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the question, I think, with the greatest challenge, that the population decline is the greatest challenge to the housing. We can turn it the other way around to say that also housing is the greatest challenge to population, one of the reasons for population decline. But also the question around the cost of construction as a great challenge as well. We used to have improvement grants in the past that used to be able, they were available for people to improve their houses and stay in their houses instead of houses reaching dilapidated stage where then people have to move and ask to put pressure on social housing. Is there any way of bringing the improvement grants back? And would that be a way to sort of ease off one of the pressures? Thank you.
I'm going to ask that first, Angela.
Thanks, Chair. I think it's very unlikely that improvements grants will come back in the way we knew it. I think Scottish Government policy has moved away from grants towards individual householders taking responsibility for looking after their own homes. So, and as part of our capital programme over the years, we've taken decisions to reduce and move away from that type of grant. So, unless that type of policy structure changes, I think it's unlikely that we will see a return to that form of house improvement grant.
Thank you. Other questions? We can move on to the recommendations to agree to meet the report. Thank you. Item 13 is the housing supply target. The report is for approval and outlines how the outputs of housing and demand assessments by the team to 2042. That's going to say that housing supply target from the forthcoming local housing strategy. And I will speak to this report from House and address some of colleagues' earlier points about eligibility and shared equity.
Thank you, Chair. So the Scottish Government guidance states that the local housing strategy is required to set out a summary of the level and type of housing to be delivered over the period of the LHS. And crucial to this is the setting of a housing supply target. Local housing strategy must explain how the housing supply target split into market and affordable housing has been determined. And for clarity, market housing is classified as the open market and private rented sector, and affordable housing is classified as social housing and any affordable purchase schemes such as shared equity or rent to buy. It is quite a lengthy paper, and I don't plan to go through every aspect of it, but I'll take you through the things that we had to consider in accordance with the guidance and the process we went through to get a feasible housing supply target. The first thing we had to do was complete the housing need and demand assessment, and this was assessed as robust and credible by the Scottish Government in October 2023. There was 4 scenarios within the HINDA, and we were required to pick the one that was most closely aligned to our current housing environment. And that was scenario 2. And if you turn to 2.14 in the working paper, that should be on page 7 or 8, depending on how you're accessing it. The number of units for each 5-year period of the HINDA was outlined in table 4. And for the first 5-year period, which is period of the LHS, there was 250 homes recommended, which is 105 affordable homes and 145 market homes. So bear in mind in the first instance that the HINDA tool is underpinned by 2018 population projections that project negatively for the Outer Hebrides. So at some point over the 20-year period of the housing need and demand assessment, the tool will suggest that no further new build will be required and our housing will be sufficient to meet our population's needs. And that point, according to the HINDA, is 2032. I would also say that, also bear in mind that the HINDA is a statistical exercise which gives us a starting point to apply our population's needs against our funding reality and our policy aspirations. Given what we know about our housing stock and our population, it's unlikely that our stock will be suitable for our population long term. So we can consider the housing supply target as an opportunity to reroute these pretty sobering population predictions. So in order to get to a housing supply target that's realistic and feasible, we had to consider the following in accordance with Scottish Government guidance: economic factors, capacity within the construction sector, dependency between the delivery of market and affordable housing at the local level, availability of resources, the pace and scale of delivery based on completion rates and recent development levels. We had to look at planned demolitions and planned new and replacement housing, including housing brought back to effective use. We also drew in availability of land, HHP's waiting list and condition of homes in the private sector. The working paper gives an overview of the policy and planning framework that we had to consider, in addition to the success of the previous housing supply target. And the latter is on page 9 or 10 of the working paper, again, depending on how you're accessing it. So table 5 shows that the social rent target was exceeded by 57%, and this is down to a combination of HHP private finance and Scottish Government funding. And at the bottom of the table, owner occupation was exceeded by 41% because of the buoyancy of the local market. The middle ground of below market rent and shared equity and private rent was not achieved, and that's largely due to affordability issues and the traditionally small private rented sector, which has been difficult to grow. Section 3 of the working paper gives detail on all the factors I mentioned previously, which can impact the pace and scale of housing delivery. And I'll highlight a few of these. The first thing I'll mention is demographics. The sustaining and growing of our population, it's at the heart of the Comhairle's corporate strategy. And the corporate strategy states itself that the overarching outcome of the work that we do, population is the overarching outcome of the work that we do, sustaining and growing of our population. And this in turn underpins the work of the local housing strategy. And we need to respond to it in an appropriate way to ensure that our housing stock doesn't hinder population stabilisation and ultimately helps to return our population to growth in some way. The second factor is economic growth, and we're all aware that we have an unprecedented level of investment happening across the Outer Hebrides over the next few years, and we need to work with various stakeholders to ensure a legacy in housing and other terms. The third thing I'd like to mention is our construction sector. In the working paper, I've outlined the issues that we are facing within the sector, and many of us will know ourselves firsthand how difficult it is to find and schedule repair works to our own homes currently, and this may be an indication of more difficulties ahead. However, what I would say is that the Comhairle's employability team is working with the sector and supporting currently 126 apprentices across 4 different year groups. And in addition to that, there'll also be a number of apprentices engaged directly by different companies. A key challenge, however, is keeping them on island once they have qualified. So we also need to consider resources, and in particular, the funding that we have available to us. We do know that the level of funding we have received from Scottish Government is set to decrease by approximately 26% according to press releases, though we await formal notification of the cut. This will have a huge impact on what we are able to deliver over the course of the local housing strategy. We can also consider HHP's financial facility. It extends to 25 million, but we need to remember that whilst HHP is committed to building a number of new homes, they also have over 2,200 properties to maintain, to service, and to bring up to an increasing set of standards for social housing. And finally, I'd like to, in terms of the things that we had to consider, I'd like to draw your attention to the condition of homes in the private sector. This is becoming a growing problem. We're now seeing the impact of abolishing the repair and maintenance grants a decade ago, with an increasing level of homelessness presentations due to homes falling below the tolerable standard. We previously had 1 or 2 cases a year. However, in the last 9 months or so, we've had 9 presentations, and many of these have been from elderly homeowners, and that is a very worrying statistic, with implications for homeless budgets, for team capacity, for health and social care in the NHS, in addition to HHP's waiting list. So in light of these factors, we prepared the impact template, which is at Appendix 1 to the working paper. The LHS steering group, which includes a cross-section of Comhairle colleagues plus external stakeholders, discussed all these impacts against the resources available to us and our strategic priorities. And we looked at different options for a split of affordable and market housing. And these are at table 10 on page 21 or 22 and of the working paper, and explained further at 4.2. The preferred split was 48% for affordable housing and 52% for market housings for the reason outlined. In light of the impacts and our policy aspirations, we concluded that we would increase the housing supply target beyond what the housing need and demand assessment suggested. Our proposed housing supply target for the period of the local housing strategy is at 4.6 of the working paper, and it is 150 affordable homes, or 30 per year, and 160 market homes, or 32 per year. And I should say that no decision has been made at this point regarding a rural or urban split. We're not required to consider this at this part of the housing supply process, but we can do that with the SHIP annually. There are many, many uncertainties in the local housing market at the moment, however, and the proposed housing supply target represents what we believe may be delivered on the ground over the course of the next local housing strategy in the current and projected environment. If conditions change, however, the Strategic Housing Investment Plan, or the SHIP, will give us the opportunity to adjust these targets annually if required. And finally, I should clarify that as the Deputy Chief Executive has already alluded to the accommodation strategy in respect of the major works, the forthcoming major works, talks are still progressing in respect of the accommodation and housing aspect of these development works. There are 2 aspects to it, a housing element and an accommodation element. And once we know what the requirements are, we'll be in a better position to adjust any target we agree for housing supply and build the accommodation aspect into the specialist housing section of the local housing strategy. And again, this can be done annually via the SHIP. So I think that's all I'll say at the moment. And myself and my colleague Ian Watson will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Actually, yeah, Fulton. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Angela, for really comprehensive report. There's quite a lot to digest here. Just looking at 5.4 and the house need and demand assessment tool scenario 2, HHP waiting list. So if we're looking at 2033 to 37, So sorry for my ignorance here. I was looking at it last night. I can't really get my head around it. But does this mean? Does this predict that there will be no persons on the waiting list in our everybody's 10 years' time? Is that, or is that too simplistic? I mean, there will probably be no requirement for housing anyways. We're actually losing members of our population due to the lack of housing. But is that the scenario too? Is that the output which is being produced by the HND tool? Thank you.
Did you catch that, Angela?
I caught some of it, and I'll try to respond to what I think I caught. You asked whether the outputs of the HINDA suggested that there was going to be no housing requirement beyond 2032. Is that what? Did I pick that up correctly?
Yes, just on the scenario 2 output in 5.4 from 2033 to 37, then onwards. Is the HND tool scenario predicting that there'll be no persons on a waiting list in the whole of Western Isles? Thanks.
Okay, again, I'll try to respond to what I think I heard. The HINDA is a statistical tool, and as I mentioned when I spoke to the report, it's underpinned by 2018 population projections, which project negatively. And what the HINDA does, it considers the volume of housing that we have and what it sees as our projected population and when these two things will come into equilibrium. The HINDA suggests that at 2032, we should have enough homes to service the population that we have. It's a very simplistic response to the issues that we're facing, but it is a statistical exercise, and it's after the HINDA is finished that we can apply our policy objectives. We know that there's probably going to be people on HHP's housing list, and there's currently, I think there's over 500, there's over about 700 on the full waiting list, and there's over, when you take away transfer applicants, it's over I think it's 500 or so. We know that there's approximately 200 new applicants added each year. There is a supply of housing added each year. There is a turnover of about 200 every year of the regular stock. These things happen all the time, and HHP do have a very comprehensive allocations report. They prepare it annually, and we know that trends show us that as homes are allocated, there are also people applying for housing continually. We know that the condition of our housing stock, as applicants grow older and homes decrease, the condition of homes decrease, there's likely to be an additional number of people added to HHP's waiting list. So I don't know if that answers your question completely. I do not anticipate HHP's waiting list to be cleared by 2032, if that answers your question in any way.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Councillor Foley will follow up with you next week at the Councillor Gordon Murray.
Thanks, Chair. Basically, I'm agreeing with Councillor Hussein, what he said earlier about housing being a challenge to depopulation and vice versa. And I suppose anyone who's been involved in buying a house in the last couple of years will know how difficult it is. The housing market is. I have personal experience of that, how difficult it is to buy a house and sell a house, etc. And that's even for local people who are living here. And I suppose if we want to encourage people who are economically active to the islands, the housing market could put a lot of people off. And I see in section 3.11 that worrying statistic is that several non-residents are successful in accepting job offers in UST, but later find themselves unable take the position since there is no accommodation available. And I wondered, had there been any discussions with HHP or developers and other stakeholders to look at building houses for specific purposes, such as to fill a gap in a workforce, for example, having houses for carers or houses for other people, you know, to try and make it a lot easier for people to relocate, so that you're ticking two boxes at the same time. You're repopulating the island and filling a kind of dearth in a certain area in the workforce, and wondered, had there been any discussions on that, and if not, would that be something that could be explored?
Thanks, Chair. It's Ian Watson, Housing Services Manager here. Thanks for the question. It's something that's part of the ongoing development of the local housing strategy. At this stage we're at the moment, we're trying to tease out what are the kind of things we're going to need in terms of housing provision over the next 5 years. And we're basically open to suggestions just now, an opportunity to look at things and carry out a bit of feasibility work to see if a thing like that could work. And this ties in very closely with the repopulation agenda, and there's reports about this coming up later in today's agenda, in particular in regards to housing for people who want to move back to the islands. So it's certainly something that we can put into the mix, if you like, when we're developing the local housing strategy, to see if that's something that can be done. You may be aware that HSP already have a very successful key worker strategy, where people wanting to move into or move to Ireland, take up key posts, get extra points on the waiting list, and this has been successful in the couple of years they've been doing it. So it shows you the kind of impact that can, the positive impact that can have on the local housing market when you get schemes like that there. But like I was saying, there's certainly something that we would like to tease out further if possible, and might be an opportunity to discuss this in more detail at the seminar in the next few days. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Thanks very much. So, do members agree the recommendation at 3.1? Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor McCormick's got his hand up.
Sorry. Mr. McCormick, 3, please.
My apologies, Chair. I just wanted to raise an issue associated with the last part of the discussion, and specific reference to elderly people. The people who are most likely to be living in poverty in the Western Isles are single elderly people, mostly pensioners. And they're living in houses which are too big for them. I can speak here from experience myself. Now, I'm not suggesting for a minute that we should turf them out or anything like that, but I wonder if there isn't some kind of thinking around that. I've heard of schemes whereby younger people go and live with older people in order to help with the situation there, and whether that would help with accommodation for younger people in our area. That type of scheme, and I wonder if that is the kind of thing that we might be considering speaking about. There are a lot of homes in the islands with single elderly people in them at this moment, and they need support, and they'd rather stay in their own home if they possibly could.
I know exactly what you're talking about, Mr. McCormick. Perhaps we can have a further discussion on that at the seminar next week as well. So the recommendations are at 3.1 for your agreement. Item 14 is a flexible eligibility scheme. The report is for approval of Siar non-members who will refuse flexibility eligibility scheme to assist few households. And we will speak, me and also speak to this report.
Thanks very much, Chair. This report is really to put a proposal in front of the committee about an opportunity to reintroduce a scheme that tackles fuel poverty and helps improve the energy efficiency of private sector homes. Members may recall that we ran this scheme in partnership with Tyne Gal, the local housing agency, several years ago, and it was very successful. TIG were able to help about 250 households over the course of the period it was operating. It's basically a scheme where TIG or the installer draws down eco-funding, energy company obligation funding from the energy companies and uses that to carry out works on private sector homes. Like I said, it was delivered very successfully by TIG up until 2019. Members may recall that there was a number of companies from the mainland operating on the island at that time, and it was discovered they were operating fraudulently, and that became the subject of a police investigation when the scheme was stopped. We've now got an opportunity to reintroduce the scheme. It's a slightly different scheme. It's now called the EcoFlex eligibility scheme. Previously, it was called the Local Authority Flexible Eligibility Scheme. Basically, it's the same scheme. It's able to provide installation works, heating works, and all aimed at helping people in fuel poverty who are on certain benefits or don't have significant savings. The council itself would not be heavily involved in this scheme. We are sort of like a facilitator. All the main role the council would have would be to publishing a statement of intent on the webpage, setting out that we're happy to deliver the scheme locally. The second main bit of involvement we would have would be just to confirming that particular households are in fuel poverty, so that would reassure the eco companies to provide the funding. The actual work should be carried out by approved installers, and we're suggesting a trial basis with 2 companies to deliver it locally. Both companies are mainland based, but they've had a presence on the islands, throughout the islands, from Lewis all the way down to Battersea for many years. They're on the Scotland Excel procurement list has been approved installers, and they also use local firms as subcontractors. So we would like to see if it can be run on a pilot basis, to see if it can help people like it did back in 2016, 2017. Happy to take any questions members might have about this proposal.
Ian, I think we all working very much reintroduction of the scheme. Councillor Finney-Stewart.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ian, for that report. I'm delighted to hear that this scheme is going to start up again. As someone who was working on these schemes before it was stopped in 2019, make a huge difference to the homes and to the fuel economy and the efficiency of the homes. So I'm just delighted to hear that it's starting up again, and hopefully it'll carry on and take some strain off those who are in fuel poverty.
You, Councillor Finnegan.
It's just to thank you, Chair. Just asking who if a constituent wanted to be involved, who do they contact? Who's the best person to contact in the first instance?
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. If the committee are happy to approve this proposal this morning, we will then be looking at putting the administrative elements of this into place, and that will include discussing this with the approved installers as to their approach to marketing it and letting people know. And we'd be happy to bring this information back to members, so members are aware of it as well, and they can direct their constituents towards the scheme. But I would imagine take a few months now to get the scheme up and running, but that will include the marketing of it to make the members of the public aware that the scheme is back up and running. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ian. Councillor Murray. Gordon Murray.
Thank you, Chair. And this is excellent news about this scheme. I remember that a lot of the houses in the Stornoway North area were actually victims of some very poor workmanship at the time, and they left quite a mess in some of the most vulnerable of households. And I would ask if they would still be eligible for this scheme if work had already been done to their houses. I would hope that they wouldn't be excluded because of this workmanship. I hope that would be open to everybody, and just like confirmation of that.
Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, we'll certainly check into that. I know at the time when the fraud came to light, Teague were able to step in and deal with some of the more serious issues of people that have been left high and dry. But we'll certainly check into that to see what how the eligibility criteria would work to try and help as many people as possible.
Thank you. Any other questions? So the report is for notifying agreement at 3.1. So we're now moving on to the final housing report, item 15, housing funding agreements 2024-25. Report is for approval and seeks to inform members of the proposed funding agreement with Energy Advisory Service (CHESS) for 24-25. And Eilean again will speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is our normal annual report seeking approval to provide grant funding to some of our partner agencies. In this case, there's only one partner agency we're working with now. That's CHESS, the Energy Advisory Service, which is delivered by Tyne Tregal, local housing agency. We've provided the support funding for many, many years to CHESS, and it's enabled them to draw down much funding from a variety of sources, which has all been used to help tackle fuel poverty on the island. We'd asked CHESS for information on the kind of work they've managed to deliver over the last year. That's included in the body of the report. So you can see there's a wide range of activities being carried out by the CHESS team. They've drawn down a substantial amount of money into the islands to help tackle fuel poverty. And the report recommends that we continue that support with funding of £39,000 to cover 24-25. Happy to take any questions the committee might have.
Thank you. Eilean, any questions from members? So, members agrees recommendations.
Sorry, we've got a question in the chamber.
Sorry, Stephen. Yourself?
Thank you, Chair. It's not a question, it's just to ask, how do TESS communicate this information, really? That's what I want to know, because I have been approached by constituents in my own ward who weren't aware of certain services that they were providing. Could I suggest that they maybe contact community councils and they could maybe get engaged with the various area forums in the communities? Because there are people out there who aren't aware of some of the services that are available here.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Morrison?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, certainly we can speak to CHESS about that. We know they do a fair bit of work going out into the communities. They go to sort of the fun days and other public events and stuff like that with their trailer and leaflets and things like that. But certainly wouldn't help to keep raising the profile of the kind of work they do, because it is very, very important and it has a very positive impact. But we'll certainly have a chat with them about the kind of steps they take to advertise the different services they have on offer.
Thank you, Eilean. So the recommendations and 3.1 for agreement.
Sorry, there's another question from Councillor McCormick.
I do apologise, Chair. It's just I note in items 6.4 and 6.6 that this is a 180k grant between 3 local authorities, which is buttons. And there in 6.6 it says there's a lack of innovative thinking and suitable resources identified to support these actions. So it's not taking us very far forward, I would say from that.
Watson?
Thank you, Chair. I can certainly check into that. I'll speak to folk at CHESS to get more information and let you know what they have, if they can expand on that.
That would be useful. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Well, we're taking these recommendations for item 15. So I would suggest now that we break for lunch, what happened there to have one. Good. Then we'll time get through the rest of the agenda. Education, I'm pleased.
Don't worry, no problem.
Education will meet at the rising of this committee. Possibly sometime early.
First committee syndrome, you know what it's like.
For those of you in the chambers, we're going to take lunch, but I am assuming at 1:30. Thank you.
Serious.
Thank you.